Now, U.S. policy changes toward Venezuelan oil could soon reshape global crude markets. While the Midwest may be insulated, energy experts say coastal refineries and eventually consumers could see impacts. Dominique O'Neill joins us now in studio. And Dominique, what have you been learning about this?
Well, Dan, I learned from representatives from the Toledo Refining Company. They say if Venezuelan crude re-enters the U.S., it could potentially eventually result in lower prices at the pump. Some recent events and developments involving Venezuelan oil are drawing close attention from U.S. energy companies. As policymakers consider easing restrictions on one of the world's largest oil producers, Scott Hayes is the Director of Strategic Communications for PBF Energy and Toledo Refining Company. He says there could potentially be multiple impacts when it comes to crude prices.
Yeah, we're watching it closely. It affects our business, and not so much in the Midwest, not so much in Toledo, but we have coastal refinery assets, and that will affect crude prices downward if more volumes of Venezuelan crude become available.
Hayes says increased supply would likely impact the Gulf Coast and East Coast refineries, first potentially leading to lower crude prices and eventually lower prices at the pump.
And I think there'll be an initial downward price if greater volumes are available on crude prices, which eventually result in lower prices at the pump.
But he says drivers shouldn't expect immediate relief. Refineries often purchase crude months in advance, meaning price changes could take time to move through the system.
It takes time from the time you buy the crude oil, even at a lower price, before you realize it at the pump.
For the Midwest, including Toledo, Hayes says the impact will be minimal. Refineries here primarily rely on Canadian crude and are limited by transportation logistics.
But we think that that'll stay on the coasts more than the Midwest. The Midwest is insulated from that.
Hayes says the general hope is that Venezuela's vast oil reserves can once again benefit its people.
But my greatest hope is that the people of Venezuela will be able to enjoy the standard of living that they deserve.
And Hayes says PBF Energy does not expect any job impacts from this potential policy shift and believes markets will eventually rebalance. For now, he says it's business as usual. Reporting in studio, Dominique O'Neill, WTOL 11.